Hi everyone, I'm Pari. Welcome to Living Your Best Life with Eddie Stone, founder and CEO of Touchstone Essential. Hello and Happy New Year, Eddie.
Hello, Perry, and Happy New Year to you and the audience. Thanks, folks, for joining us here at the start of 2020. It's a brand new decade. It's exciting.
Yes, correct. It's a very nice number, 2020.
It is, right? I don't know if you refer to it the same way, but here when you have an eye exam, if you have good vision, they tell you have 20/20 vision.
Oh,
So 2020, we're going to see things clearly in 2020.
Correct. And how was your New Year?
It was quiet by the standards that you see on the televisions and things like that, but it was very nice. We were with some friends and we played some games and we just had a nice time. I hope for you. Did you have a nice New Year's?
Yes, I have. Like with friends and families.
Yeah.
And yeah, for this first day of the new year for us and for the show, Eddie, you have anything for the audience that's very interesting to share with them?
I do. And I was inspired by a trip I took to my local gym. So I'm a member of a gym local to my home. And I like to go to the gym. It's a place for me to release maybe some stress or kind of get by myself and focus and think about things. Or when I have a big strategic decision, I'll oftentimes go to the gym because it's kind of quiet. And even if I put a pair of headphones on, there may not be any music. I just do it so somebody talks to me so I can just have my private time. And I don't think I'm alone in that regard, right? There's a lot of people that use the gym in that regard because it's not only healthy, but it can be a place to gather your thoughts and manage stress. And I was reminded this past weekend when I went on Saturday, I couldn't find a parking spot. And it's a pretty good size facility, right? I think I've been going to that gym for more than 10 years, and I never recall any day, any time not being able to find a parking spot. And so I was just sort of reminded of how many people on New Year's or at the end of the year, maybe because they've eaten too much during the holidays and they've had too much fun, or maybe they're thinking about their life in a new year and a new decade and they want to get more healthy. And so a lot of people will join a gym, or they might have been members and just not using their membership, right? And so there's all kinds of these health declarations. And I think getting healthy for someone that's not on track and they say, you know what, I want to get healthy. I think that's great, right? I really encourage that. I'm inspired by some of the people I see, but sadly, I see so many of them in there on that first Saturday after New Year's, and they won't be there in a month. They'll sort of forget, right? You've seen that before. So people make resolutions or declarations or establish goals, and then life happens. It gets in the way and it gets busy, and so it doesn't work out. And so one of the things I try to think about in my line of work, I get a lot of people that will ask me, for advice, or they'll go on our blog and they'll read some of the things we're writing about healthy eating and living and how to deal with toxins or other type of issues, taking a whole food and natural approach to life. And one of the things that I see happen all the time is people will go to the gym, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, Perry, but they haven't been to the gym in 5 or 10 years, and all of a sudden they go to the gym and they are just working like crazy. And so I saw people on Saturday with these really red faces, and they were just working so hard. And what I knew, though, was that they were going to wake up on Sunday and they were going to be really sore.
Correct.
And then maybe they don't want to go back to the gym. And so there's a couple of messages I want to share, but one is I applaud anybody making the effort, no matter what it is, even if it just means you're going to walk a little bit more. If you're going to go to the gym, then I applaud that too. But I do encourage people to ease in there slowly. Sometimes they may not have been all that healthy, and it might, if they've been under the treatment of a doctor or they've got some blood pressure or cardiovascular disease, it's important to make sure you're healthy enough to do rigorous exercise. And I think if you start slowly, make yourself enjoy it instead of hating it, and deal with the muscle recovery in a healthy manner, I think people are far more likely to stick to it, right? And what I want is that person that starts that first Saturday after New Year's to be there the last Saturday of 2020, right? That would be fantastic for them and healthy. And what I was observing as the day went on, because I was really fascinated by this. And so normally if I'm at the gym, it's 35 or 40 minutes and I'm coming home, but I was milling around a little bit and sort of taking my time and paying attention. And there's a lot of people that were working out and then they were going to the little smoothie cafe and they were looking for refreshments, right? And so they weren't necessarily getting water. Some people are getting water, but they were buying large fruit juices, you know, and I understand that, right? It probably tastes really good, or they're buying smoothies and all these smoothies have a lot of sugar in them. And so it's, if you've been around it a while, it's easy to see that that's really sabotaging all this extra work and effort. It's almost like, I don't know if you have Starbucks there in Thailand or something like a Starbucks, right?
We have many.
Yeah, many. Okay, sure. Mostly in Asia, lots of Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
And people will go to places like that and they'll get a mocha latte or whatever it is, and they come out with these really large drinks, but they're really much like an ice cream milkshake.
Yeah.
And you can actually look on the menu at a place like Starbucks in the States. They have to put the calories on the order board, and you might have a coffee drink or a smoothie that you buy at a cafe at the gym that might have 1,500 or 2,000 calories. And depending upon what a person weighs, that may be all the calories they're supposed to have all day.
Yeah.
And tragically, or not tragically, I guess that's a little dramatic, but unfortunately, it'll be mostly sugar calories. So when you think about calories, and I guess most of our audience will know this, but just as a reminder, 1 gram of a carbohydrate, whether it's a good carbohydrate or a bad one, is going to be 4 calories. 1 gram of protein, whether that's a lean protein or a fatty protein, that protein gram is 4 calories. And then fat, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. Most of us would realize, to try to avoid some of the fat, not completely, but some of it, but it's the sugar that really gets in the way. And so today, what I thought we would do is talk a little bit about how to choose the best foods post-workout. And I'm not really talking about a diet. We could save that if there's some questions that we get from the show that people want us to deal with that type of subject matter. But what I want to do is try to educate everybody a little bit so that they're better equipped to make some of those sort of on-the-go decisions about food that would support someone that's working out. Because it's important to remember that when you're working out, there's several things that you're doing. One is, you should be, if you do it the right way, you should be increasing your metabolism. Mm-hmm. Particularly if your workout includes any kind of weightlifting or pushing against heavy things or lifting heavy things. And you don't have to think about it like traditional weightlifting like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but if you're putting pressure, right, if you're pushing it against a machine, lifting a medicine ball, whatever it happens to be, anytime you do that, you're stressing the muscles. That's a great thing. And the more you can stress your muscles, the better, because that has a lingering impact on your metabolism. So when you leave the gym, if you do it the right way, for several hours afterwards, your body's burning more calories than it normally would. And as a rule, the more muscle you have on your body, as opposed to, say, fat, the more calories you will burn in general. So a person that weighs 150 pounds that's muscular and doesn't have a lot of fat will burn more calories than a person that's not muscular at 150 pounds has more fat. So actually, the more you go to the gym, the better you are at burning calories, and you actually can enjoy a little bit more of those cheap foods that people like to have. And so thinking about that is important. And remember, all of this is you're educating yourself and you're learning along the way. Don't feel like you've got to have all this memorized. If you've been sitting on the sidelines or on the couch for 10 years, you're not going to fix all that in one day at the gym. And don't put that pressure on yourself. it wouldn't be unusual that it takes 6 months or 1 year or 2 years to regather yourself. There's a gentleman I see at my gym frequently, and regrettably, I don't know his name. He always has headphones on, and he kind of keeps to himself, but I've been watching this for a couple of years. And when he first came in, just sort of generally looking at him, I would have guessed he's 350 to say 400 pounds. It's really large, and he would fall into that category of morbidly obese. And so I'm 56, and I want to say he was probably maybe 5 years younger than me. But over the past 3 years, he's really slimmed down. But the progress has been, some might call it slow, but I would say it's probably the right kind of progress. But if it takes you a couple of years to lose a couple hundred pounds, I believe that means you're learning how to eat, you're learning how to exercise, you're making lifestyle adjustments that will support the long-term impact of losing that kind of weight. And he doesn't know me, but from afar, I'm a really big fan. I just almost find myself cheering whenever I walk in there and I see him in the gym. I just go, oh my gosh, that's great. That he's still, working at it. It's so inspiring to look at it from afar. But my point about that is you got to ease into these things if you want them to stick, if you want it to stay around. You hear things like, well, you've got to do something for, say, 60 days for it to become a habit. Maybe that's true. I'm not a psychologist, but for me, I know I need several months, 3, 4, 5 months for something to really ingrain itself and become a part of my routine. I'm actually, one of my sort of resolutions for the year is to really focus on process more than results. Because if you get the right process, you refine the process, it doesn't matter how fast the results will come. Of course, we want there to be some results, but you carry forward something long-term for your success. It could be health and diet, could be business, could be family, could be habits you're trying to change within yourself. And so I'm a big fan of that. And so to sort of think about this as a person's re-entering the exercise world, working out world, if they've not done it before, let's make sure we don't just think about the type of exercise you're doing. So any kind of lifting of weights within, the scope of professionalism, ask for help if you don't know what you're doing so you don't injure yourself. High intensity interval training sounds worse than it is. It's really just short 30, 40-second burst of effort. Expands your lungs, can improve your skin. There's all kinds of benefits to that. So we could talk about exercise in another program, but today, here's the thing I want to encourage you to do. We talk about on our show trying to avoid ultra-processed foods. This is particularly important to discipline yourself for when you're working out, because once you first start working out, most people find that their appetites really go up. Mm-hmm. And so they can eat themselves back into the hole or a deficit from what they burned off. So one is just that native hunger. But the other one is, for a lot of people, and I really understand this, that you work out, right? You make a sacrifice, you go to the gym, and then you want to reward yourself with something. But if you do that repeatedly, you'll find yourself sort of spinning your wheels, if that's a term you're familiar with, right? You're not going anywhere because the calories you're expending, you're putting back in. And if they're junk, then they don't have that native level of micronutrients and things that your cells need to survive and fight disease and keep you alive and keep you healthy and keep your metabolism going. So I encourage people to really try to avoid junk food. I mean, I want them to avoid it all the time. But when they work out, when those temptations are high, I think they're really vulnerable to that. The second one is, and this falls into the junk food category, but let's be very specific about it, is refined sugars. Mm-hmm. So if you're a soft drink person, if you drink soft drinks or sodas, this is a habit you've got to break. Whether they're the ones with sugar or the ones that are sugar-free, because there's no nutrients in the sugar-free ones. It's just a waste of your time and your energy. If you've got to have something with flavor, get a couple of ounces of fruit juice and put it with 10 or 12 ounces of club soda or sparkling water, right? It'll have a little bit of flavor, but limited amount of calories. So those individuals that were going in after their workout into the cafe, getting, say, a 12 or 16 ounce orange juice or apple juice, whatever, they were really sabotaging what they were doing because they're going to spike their blood sugar. And so water and drinks or smoothies that have other ingredients such as some fat, not much fat, some fat and protein is what you're looking for. So main thing is avoid the junk foods, the ultra processed foods, refined sugars, starches, snack foods such as potato chips and things of that kind. They're a bad idea when you're trying to work out and use that to get healthy. And then the other thing to be careful of, and this is true really lots of parts of the world, don't sabotage this effort with excess alcohol. Because you're going to the gym is not a license to have a 12-pack of beer or a bottle of wine or whatever it has, because that's, again, it's sugar, it's calories. And the other side of it is the way alcohol affects your metabolism. It's going to sabotage that increase in metabolism you've enjoyed. So, things like coffee are good, but not things like Monster energy drinks and Red Bulls, right? So be smart, right? Be smart and think about these calories. So some of this lesson is about the best foods for working out is things to avoid, right? So, and we have a smart audience. And so I'm confident they know about the things to avoid. But now let's talk about things to include. And I want to take a moment here and let's have a little bit of a lesson about this. So when you think of food in its macro terminology, it has three components. It has carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Carbohydrates, 4 calories per gram. Protein, 4 calories per gram. Fat, 9 calories per gram. Regardless of the quality, that's going to be the same. When you're working out, if you're using your muscles, if you're trying to rebuild yourself, right, you want to make sure that you have more protein than normal. Now, that doesn't mean you go out there and you have 40 hamburgers or things like that. And, I'm an advocate of plant-based proteins. So that's not a license to go out there and have excess amounts of meat, because in general, that will come with saturated fats and cause other sort of issues that will sabotage, again, this working out. If a person ethically and otherwise, they want to have some animal protein and meat, that's fine. You just want to make sure you're looking for lean sources and don't have too much. There's a myth out there, particularly I see this in the US and Europe, where men have this tendency to think they almost need a gram of protein per pound of body weight. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's plenty of research out there to support. So I weigh 195 pounds. So that's my body weight. And based upon the latest research, the quality research that's out there, even when I'm working out, 50 to 55 grams of protein is really all I need. So that's probably a third of the notion that people have where they have too much protein. And one of the ways you can observe this, particularly if you're having animal protein, is if your stool, when you go to the bathroom, if your stool is darker in color, darker brown particularly, then that means your body is wasting out protein and you're having too much. You want to look for a stool that can be influenced by vegetables and things of that kind, but in general, your stool should be lighter in color, right? And since we're dealing with fairly indelicate subject matters on the show anyway, if your stool happens to float, that means you've got a good adequate amount of fiber in your diet. So if it sinks to the bottom and it's a really dark color, probably too much protein, too much animal protein particularly, and not enough fiber. So as waste goes out of your body, it can be very instructive in terms of what you learn. So now, getting back to this macro carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, you do need extra protein than say you normally would, but that doesn't mean to go crazy with it, right? So normally for me, if I have 35 or 40 grams of protein a day, then if I'm going to the gym and I lift some weights and have a vigorous workout, maybe I add 20%, 25% to what I normally have. The reason the protein is important because it provides amino acids that can be used to repair muscle. When you're working out, you're actually tearing against the fibers of the muscle, and that's a good thing. They're built to do this. You're not harming yourself, and they build back, and you become stronger. So you need protein, and you want to think about it of a balance. And so one of the ways to think about it is maybe if normally you have 30% of your calories on a daily basis from protein, maybe you have 40 45% of your calories from protein when you're heavily working out. You want to continue to have carbs, but let me please encourage everybody, have good carbs from whole fruits and vegetables. Complex carbohydrates, grains can be a good source of complex carbohydrates. And so not the juices and things of that kind. The reason you want some carbohydrates, now you don't want to go crazy with this, but the reason you want some carbohydrates is it helps to restore the glycogen supply in your liver and your muscles. And so you use those up when you work out, right? One of the first things you tap into in a good workout is you tap into a glycogen supply in your liver. And so you want to restore that, right? And it's not immediate. So you got to have the carbs. They've got to be, processed by the body. You hear about marathoners, right? They'll carb load the night before a race because it takes some time to get into the muscle. So you need some protein, you need some carbs. And here's where you got to be careful. You want a limited amount of fat. On a daily basis, setting aside, most people probably should have 30% of their calories from good, healthy fats. If you're trying to lose weight, get in shape, then that probably number needs to slip down to, say, 20%. And here, again, we want good fat. Plant fats are excellent. Monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fats are good. You want to be careful with saturated fats. Some saturated fats, such as saturated fat from MCT oil and coconut, can have a healthy benefit, but not too much, right? Not too much. And so you want to make sure you're conscious. And the bottom line is moderation and balance, right? So whatever your target numbers are, if it's 40% of your calories coming from protein, 35 or so percent coming from carbohydrates, and the rest coming from fat, that's sort of a good way for most people, unless you have special needs or you're working out like a professional athlete, then things can change in that regard. Now, one of the ways to think about the fat is, so if I'm getting a smoothie after the gym, a little bit of almond butter in that smoothie, along with the protein source, maybe it's a pea protein, something like that, and a couple whole berries and things of that kind. The fat can slow the rate with which the sugars break down so that your blood sugars don't spike. And keeping your blood sugars from spiking is important because it keeps your glucose from rising too fast and your body producing excess amounts of insulin, which will cause a fat store. So from a timing standpoint, let me give you some things to think about. If you're going to the gym, and I'll give a little bit of commercial for one of our products. We have a lot of professional athletes, I think you've probably seen in our social media, that are involved with using our products, and they've helped us with some of our formulations. Our super green juice with a few ounces of fruit juice, just a few ounces, 30 minutes to, say, an hour before the gym will give you sort of a ready supply of healthy carbohydrates and a slow rate of release into the blood sugars, right? So that's a pre-workout, right? But not too many calories. Maybe that's just a couple hundred calories, right? So quite limited. Maybe for a woman on the smallest side, maybe that's only 100 calories or 150 calories, right? A guy, maybe someone my size, 250, 300 calories, perfectly fine. After the workout is really where you want to make sure that protein is. And the window, it'll vary from research paper to research paper, but for most sort of experts, they believe anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes after a workout, particularly if that workout has included weights, that's the proper time to get your protein. 30 to 90 minutes. You don't want to wait after an hour and a half. And you don't want to do it too quickly because the body won't assimilate it in the way that you want it to, and it actually will slow your metabolism. A couple suggestions on food. If you go over to our blog, there's a number of blog articles that have smoothies that are suggested, and you can even download a smoothie guide, which has delicious recipes. We've tested them all, made them ourselves. They're fantastic. And you don't have to use our products in them. They would be fine with other products. We, of course, like for you to use our products, but you can use other products with them. So there's a dark chocolate almond smoothie, and it's basically made with almond milk. And so for somebody that's out there thinking, oh, this healthy food doesn't taste good, I promise you that dark chocolate almond smoothie is fantastic. So it's got some almond protein butter, give you a little bit of fat and a little bit of protein. You've got banana, dark chocolate. Don't let it be a candy bar. right? Dark chocolate, maybe a little bit of sugar, but not too much at all. Scoop of the green juice and a scoop of our organic super protein. The super protein and the green juice both have a sweet flavor to them, right? So you won't need sugar to add to it. That's great. Mix that with some ice,
Yeah.
and enjoy. It's delightful. If you don't like things like that, some people don't want something cold when they work out. So you can put almond butter on whole grain toast. That can be a good source. Be careful that it's not too much almond butter because that can have too much fat with it. That can be good. Egg whites, if you eat eggs, egg whites with avocado on whole grain toast for people can enjoy. For people that eat fish, salmon with sweet potatoes. If they don't like toast or they're trying to stay away from starches or grains, then they can go with sweet potatoes and salmon. If they don't eat salmon, but they do need those healthy plant fats, a product like our Wellspring, which is parent essential plant oils, will give you those omega-3s that are sort of critical in what we're looking here. Quinoa for people that are looking to stay away completely from some of these things that we've been talking about from a animal protein standpoint or the fat stuff. Quinoa is delicious. It's nutrient dense. It's got protein, fiber, very complex carbohydrate. It takes a while to break it down. Just one thing, just a little lesson. I see people at the gym, the smoothies is one thing they do, right, with too much sugar, but they also eat excessive amounts of bananas. Mm-hmm. They're convinced that they need the potassium, and bananas are delicious, right? But the bananas are highly glycemic, and so they break down fast and raise your blood sugars, and they have a lot of calories. They have a lot of sugar in them. So don't overdo it on the bananas. You're not a monkey. You just need a little bit of banana. Goes a long ways. And so these are some things, and you can learn some of this on your own and spend some time on the internet learning about it, but don't be extreme. Look for balance. And at the end of the day, here's the bottom line I would tell people. Use your common sense. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something that seems too extreme, doesn't make you happy, it's not fun, don't do it. Find a way to do these things in a way that it's fun and that you enjoy the food. So that's what I wanted to share. I'm really enthused and a big fan of people when they get in there and they do the work. I love the process, love to see it. I'm inspired by people's efforts, and particularly those individuals that are starting way behind, right? They've really got a lot of work to do, and I just wished I could hug them. It'd be odd though if I went up and hugged strangers, but I cheer for them in my mind, and I want to see them do well. So that's what I wanted to share today as a good way to get us started for the new year.
It sounds good, no dark chocolate almond smoothie and egg with avocado, sounds great. You make me hungry.
Oh, it's delicious.
Breakfast time.
Yeah, and put a little, do you ever eat Himalayan pink salt? Mm-hmm. Just a little bit of that pink salt on that egg white omelet avocado toast. Oh my golly, that is fantastic. Now I'm a hot sauce person, so I'll also use some red pepper and some hot sauce. Now I know in Thailand you got some really, really hot peppers and sauce. So it might be a little more for me than I want, but in fact, it just reminds me, my kids gave me a hot sauce making kit for my Christmas present. So I'm going to try that here in the next couple of weeks. I'll give you a report on it.
Okay. And you're talking about refined sugar here in Thailand. Thai people eat quite sweet, even when we cook food, we add sugar too in our food. So got to be very careful, because we take without knowing that we take it, it's like culture.
Yeah. And it's hard to break those habits, right? It's difficult, but even in Thailand, you do a lot of things a lot better than what I see here in the States, but you have diabetes, right? And, yes. And diabetes, you look at the particularly type 2 diabetes people develop, and a lot of it comes from the refined sugar in their diet. So you've got to be careful.
Uh-huh. Okay, Eddie, thank you so very much for sharing with us today. Very, very informative. Well, so we see you again next time, okay?
You got it, Pari. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.